Hawthorne, California. Seems like just the other day. Anyhow, that's where I was born. Grew up in the South Bay of Los Angeles. I had an older sister who's about 2 years older than me. I had some cousins who were real close growing up, and they were almost like siblings, you know. And we grew up at a good time, you know, when we would play with the box instead of the toy. We spent our days, we were constantly just skin up, and we were verbs. You know, it was a good time to be born. In hindsight, there was a sense of wonder filled our days. It's funny, I got started in Kung Fu probably long before I got started in Kung Fu, which seems like a strange way to answer that question. But from watching Warner Brothers cartoons and so forth, and I remember at a very young age, Green Hornet was on. And so I was fanatical, to say the least, about Kato. And it was at a time when we played superheroes, and it was only real if you put the towel on, you know, so grandma would, on the weekends, you know, put the safety pin on your towel, right? And then it was real. And you were whoever it was you were being, you know. And Kato, I could say Kato faster than Dibs, you know, on riding shotgun or something. I was just geared to go. It's the only one I wanted to play. And so I'd always get to jump on it, and I'd be Kato, my cousin would have to be Batman and Superman or whoever they would have to be, and I was always able to kick him in the head as soon as I was Kato. And it's pretty funny. I remember Grandma saying, "Stop kicking your cousins in the head," you know, because I was generally the mellowest of them all. But Grandma, I'm Kato. I'm Kato. I have to kick him in the head. And that's a pretty funny earliest memory of martial arts, and that it was going to be a lifelong adventure. Yeah. I started my formal life pattern in the path in formal martial arts shortly after my non-formal one, which formally I was watching Kung Fu every Wednesday night, you know, and that was kind of a part of it. And then shortly after high school, I got together and I was garage boxing with some friends. And that's when, you know, Sugar Ray, Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler, those greats were out there. And so I got to hitting bags and doing all that stuff when I suddenly realized, hey, I better pursue this. And I actually had got off work early one day. I was building chain link fences, and I went over. I decided I was going to sign up to be a kickboxer. And I went over to Danny Inosanto's school at the time, when it was a brick school over in Normandy. And I was too early. They weren't open. So I was like, oh man, I'm going to tell my buddy, right? One of my boxing friends. Hey, I'm going to sign up for coming. He goes, well, check this out, dude. And it happened to have that month's Inside Kung Fu that had Cam Ewan on the cover. And he goes, I just checked these guys out. And it was so awesome. You gotta go look at it. And there was a magazine that was like, really? You know, and it happened to be, you know, the guy that, you know, the technical advisor for the original series. So it stirred my interest, and so I thought, well, let's give that a look. And so that night, instead of going back to the Inosanto Academy, I went over to the Time Mantis Academy, and I was extremely impressed. Cam Ewan, I could just sense that he was the real deal. So that's where I got started. In Torrance, California, at the Time Mantis Kung Fu Association, which the specialty was in Northern Shaolin Monastery, and then the Tai Chi Kung Mantis. So we specialize in the Mantis system and the weapons, and I kind of like the, what everybody else wasn't doing is what I wanted to do. So I specialized in the 3-sectional staff, and eventually I was able to express myself wholeheartedly through the particular genre of movement that was coming my way. And there was a boxing gym in the back, and it was somehow fate took me, you know, what feels like in hindsight, the right place at the right time. Well, it's interesting, you know, the way I got involved with David Carradine was once I started Kung Fu at the Time Mantis Academy, it was in a very short time I asked, may I be able to take other classes? Well, as soon as Cam Ewan said, heck yeah, you can, come on, stay for the next class. That's when I pretty much started spending 8 hours a day at the Kung Fu school. So within just a very just a couple of years, already I was kind of part of the woodwork there. It was another one of those bizarre twists of fate, I guess. He had been hired to work on A Lone Wolf McQuade, and he hadn't been training for a while. So the chance to work with, Chuck Norris and play that particular role, he was going to prep for it. So he gets a hold of Cam Ewan, who had been his teacher, and Cam says, hey, he was going to a chiropractic school at the time, so his days were very busy, and he says, hey, Rob, how you feel about going to working with David? And I was a little intimidated at the time, because I was kind of brainwashed from watching TV at the time, and it was like, well, you don't say no to something like that. So sure, I'll go, right? And he said, neither one of you wear any shoes, and you guys are going to get along fine. So I think it was just his instincts, they're like, let's see, these guys they'll figure something out. And so I started working with David to prepare him for that, and I tried to show up very professional, and I was always on time, and I was always trying to just take him through the old traditions and stuff. So our relationship evolved considerably over the 30 years. But at the very first, I was about 21, I think. David was thinking I was 22. But it was to prepare for Lone Wolf McQuade. It was the first chance I started working with him. The Kung Fu Legend Continues that I was lucky enough to work on, that was one of the greatest chapters of my life. Again, it came at a kind of a strange time where I was doing construction, and it was kind of a depressing chapter. And Dave had called me up, hey Rob, you still doing Kung Fu? Of course I'm doing, I'm always doing Kung Fu, what else am I supposed to do, And he says, well, how do you feel? There's a potential series coming up. And it's like, yeah, okay. And I'd already worked with him on the Kung Fu the movie with Brandon Lee. And anytime something was coming up, he would hire me once he and I started working together. I was like, really? And again, I was kind of like scared. Where? Canada? Huh? And it was a time where I just said, let's do it. Let's go. Let's roll, Kato. Right? And it wound up being so wonderful and so bizarre, and any job you have, it has its ups and downs and life's and chapters. But I was so thrilled to finally be at service somehow with my martial arts, and I was primarily just his trainer. And they eventually started using me for doing extra work, and then pretty soon you're talking, and next thing you know, I wound up with a character with a name. But that was 4 years of filming in Toronto, California, and when I go there still, it feels like I'm going home. More than here. Far, far, far more than Los Angeles. Here I'm just wandering around. There it's like, hey, Rob's back, man, let's go, let's do Kung Fu, right? And we went up having a great time. Al Leong coordinated it for the latter 2 years. It was a 4-year program. A gentleman named Mike Vendrell did it the first 2 years. And he was a hoot. He was really, really a lot of fun. But he was conflict-oriented, and which is typical for martial artists. And around the second year, he was kind of, I don't know, I think he was ready to move on to something else. But then Al Leong came in, the second 2 years. Well, Mike Vendrell was a brilliant, brilliant man. He was like a Kung Fu genie. Really interesting character that I wound up being really, really good friends with. When I was lucky enough to work on Kill Bill, I was on the payroll for about 6 months, primarily for the training and then the first 3 months in China. I got to meet Gordon Liu. And Gordon Liu instantly, it's a funny story. I'm gonna go ahead and tell the story a little bit. So we're here and we're in the workout area there in Beijing, right? And I'm next to Quentin Tarantino, right? And he's on the treadmills. And I never got a whole lot of chance to talk to him much. But for whatever reason, that day we were hanging out, and all of a sudden Gordon Liu walks in. And then we got Sonny Chiba over here, and you've got Yun Wo Ping, and all of the Kung Fu Circus that he works with. And I mean, the room's filled with everybody, Uma, Vivek, everybody, right? I go, dude, right? You got Gordon Liu. And he just looks at me, he starts cracking up, he says, yeah, man, we got Gordon Liu. Can I mess with him, right? And of course, well, sure, go ahead. I was like, I got it. And so he's just coming in, and he's with a guy who winds up being his interpreter or something. So they're walking in, and so I'm like booked across the, little workout space, and I'm going to introduce myself to Gordon Liu. And as soon as I'm 5 feet away, here comes Ping and intercepts me, right? Like, didn't intercept me, but basically he gets a hold of Gordon. So now it's like, I'm going to have to just noodle here, where we're supposed to be busy in there. So I start doing my stuff, right? I'm just kind of pulling strings, moving wires, doing the kind of weird kung fu that I do, mostly praying mantis stuff. So I'm going to busy myself for a second. And Ping starts talking to him, and Gordon looks over at me, and he just goes, "Kung Fu Master." And it was so cool. I was like, I'm only Lilo in a house, right? So we became friends, like instantly. We didn't follow up, but he treated me so good. He had a daughter the same age as my daughter. And I tell you, I used to watch the 36-inch Shaolin religiously. It was like one of my all-time, to this day, it's one of my favorite kung fu movies. And Gordon Liu's the real deal. And it was so wonderful to meet someone who was that gracious of a gentleman, who was fascinated in my alternative thinking. He'd pull me aside and through his interpreter, he wants to know what that thing is you're doing. So I got to share with him the nine Zalms, and that was when I was, before I'd kind of really stepped into sacred geometry, but I was already doing alternative movement concepts, and he dug it. So he'd get happy anytime we would meet each other at the coffee place at a craft service or something. Gordon would want to hang out with me, and I really gentlemanly smitten with his soul and his inspiration and his grace. What a cool dude. I lived in Hawaii for a while, and how that happened was, I made a decent amount of change working on Kill Bill, and there came a time where the script had been shifted and David wasn't really going to be there, and I was there as his trainer. So what are you doing? Next thing you know, you're the Maytag repairman. And it was kind of, hey, we're going to have to let you go. You're not fired, but we don't really need you anymore. So I had Mike Vendrell gets a hold of me and says, "Hey, Rob, why don't you come to Hawaii? Come at least stay for 2 weeks. Come on, you got to come over and stay for 2 weeks." So, all right. And so I went over there, and my daughter turned 18, and her boyfriend wanted to kind of take over the place there in California where we were renting. And then my mom was moving. So life was changing everywhere. So that 2 weeks wound up being 3.5 years. And I liked it so much. And Hawaii was a really spectacular chapter. Once you get to Aloha, it gets in your blood, and it's funny, if you're family until you prove otherwise, and then, right? So by the grace of God, and Pele and the rest, I felt like another place that I kind of fit in, I've always sort of been a misfit, looking for some place to fit in, and Kung Fu has been that playing field for me. Hawaii was a wonderful chapter. The development of Fai Chi and Fai Chi sticks is an ongoing process. I've always felt the dire need to be different, and I saw lots of things in the art shifting, from seeing as a kid, you'd see Jiu-Jitsu cartoons, and then you saw Muhammad Ali, who could float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and you see Bruce Lee, was just flipping and kicking, and the next thing Hickson comes to town. And now suddenly they're taking that clay and that ball, and now they're putting it on a board where they're certainly molding it and bringing it down. The next thing you know, they're driving it instead of smashing it and beating it. A very interesting thing, and I was kind of interested in to get to it, but it was like, I feel this other need, there's something else. The art was evolving till suddenly it was becoming a clay and moldable, instead of just chaos. And who's the busiest, and who can hit the fastest and the hardest and stuff, and this ricocheting sort of energy started to evolve and get purified. And it was really, it was the Gracies who did it. They had thought it through, and if they were calm, they were grizzled like a Gene LaBelle type, and they could still function, and through family and love, they figured out a way to really create a science out of this. And I thought, well, what's next? Prior to Hawaii, when I was living in Ventura, I would take a bag of weapons to the beach, and that was my Kung Fu church. I just get away from everybody, go to the river mouth, and then you'd see people going, there's a crazy man over there. Come on, Johnny, let's go. This guy's nuts, right? He's over there, he's swinging swords around, 100 miles an hour. You know, they're gonna call the cops. Right? You there, stop that. And I'm like, I'm out as far away from society as I could be, you know? And after doing that for quite a while, there was a certain day that showed up where we had this really big rain. And I go down there by myself, and there ain't nobody around. And lugging this bag of sticks, and suddenly it was strange. It was almost like hearing voices. Pick me up. The risk of sounding like a nuts. But really, I feel that it was just a spirit talking to me. And these certain shapes of this different stuff that had not only driftwood, but things that had washed down the river. The whole entire beach is just filled with this stuff. Wow, and I started picking up these different shaped sticks and branches. And the obvious were the ones that would pick up and look like you could bludgeon something. Like, oh, caveman, I go, oh, wham, right? And I pick them up and I could feel a different energy. And suddenly some of them were inquisitive. They didn't want to be weaponized. They didn't want to be hostile. They were lively. And I could feel it. Like, talking about it, the hair on my arms was going up. There was a living essence of something that was talking to me. And that was the pursuit of what eventually became refined sacred geometry contraptions. But I found something that was twisted, that looked like a root that had been on a log, and I found another thing that was, hey, what? Just these different arcs and spin shapes. When you'd swing at them, they'd woo, 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 and they'd take off. And some you'd burrow around with the end of it, like as if it was a dragon's head, you know, and your whole body would become serpentine. And there's something here, there's something here. And so I spent like a couple years really pursuing, what am I onto? There's something here. And I'm going to get to the bottom of it. If it kills me, you know, I'm not stopping. And I don't know what, other than source, something drove me to do exactly the opposite of what everybody else was doing. So I was taking martial physics to what, you know, if you've got your concussion, dislocation, and asphyxiation. Really the three things that the mixed martial arts is prioritizing on. And I'm saying, well, this stuff comes from holy men. Somewhere there's a meditation. And look at the greats like Yeshiva and the stories of Musashi. And you can sense they had whittled themselves into refinement. And I thought, there's got to be a damn dynamic meditation, like the original stuff. How do I get it? How do I find it? What do I do it? And these alternative shapes started leading the way, where I was, without realizing it, I was using Einstein's string theory over the Fibonacci sequence. I don't want to get into the confusing side of things, but science revealed itself that I was actually onto something with this golden ratio. After I kept using the different sticks, common denominators would show up, and I found that certain shapes were more alive. They would forgive forward. They didn't even want to be hostile. And that angst energy of being a lifelong martial artist, it's a martial. And I thought, somebody's got to figure something out here. And being Kwai Chang Cain's teacher, I'm onto something. And David was begging me, Rob, what's the bottom line? I got to know the bottom line. If you can tell me what the Masters knows, I can adjust my eyebrow on camera. And Dave was really funny. He was a highly advanced soul. Cantankerous as the day is long, but he's always David, unless you're paying him to be somebody else. And as being the guy that was hired to give him his information for the day, I took it very serious and to heart, and began to kind of re-evolutionize some of the shapes of martial arts and to minimize the bloodshed imagery. It's this wave dynamic that I've sort of realized now after all these years. What are these things? Are they wormholes? Are they pathways? Are they flotation devices? What are they? But they tell this immaculate truth of we're water. So just as Bruce prophesied, be like water. And where's the evidence? What does that mean? Well, without the surfboard, you wouldn't know how to navigate that current potential. And by using the physio sticks, one's able to recognize the harmony from nature as opposed to the martial, which would be in the category of disharmony. And I found that I could entertain myself for hours on end, just pouring my heart into the art. And to have the stick kept it going. I could ride the wave until, whoop, I just would step off. This is another funny thing. That I've started writing children's books, and the first one is one called An Enchanted Little Tale, if I may say so myself, and it's called Lady Humblebee. And it started out as Humble Bumble, and everything evolves once you step into it. But believe it or not, I had a lovely lady that I'd met at a certain function. We won't get into the details, but she was a palm reader. And she had died twice. And she's one of those immaculate beings that can just, the angels are telling me to tell you this, and she looks off to the side of you and she channels stuff. Well, when she looked at my hand, at a palm reading thing, her mouth will open like a $3 suitcase. And everyone else, she's telling them, you eat less starch, you need to go, to talk to your auntie, you need to, and all this little stuff. And I waited till last because it was mostly ladies there, so I was just trying to be, chivalrous. And so towards the end of the night, when she looked at my palm, it was, you're creating wormholes. You're a galactic healer. You're bringing light into the earth. And she's and you're not supposed to be doing construction. You're supposed to be a healer with these hands. And oh my God, and you're going to write children's books. And you're going to be very successful at it. And she started telling me all this really amazing stuff. Her name is Dr. Sarah Larson, for anyone to look her up. But that really changed my life. I got challenged. Well, come on, I don't know, construction worker. I don't know. Kung Fu guy, right? Being an alternative sets yourself up for a lot of ridicule, and I kind of dig that. I'm just like, all right, I'll go. And so the children's books have been a really fun journey for me. And finally now, through fate, again, I've got a publisher. The first one's available in print. You can get it on Amazon, right? Lady Humblebee is its name. And the intention is healing. I want to do world healing, and so it's a timeless little tale. There's leprechauns, fairies, and gnomes, and different things like that. So my intention on this book is to really make the world a better place, and to get people and love honey more, love bees more, and it's just for generations to come. Where hey, that's a fun story. It's not zombies. It's not. It's just a cute little fairy tale. So I got some really fun, gnarly ones coming, right? Bullnose the pirate whale and these different, Kung Fu dinosaur stories. But for now, it happens to be Lady Humblebee. And so far, so good. I got a second chance. We don't always get a second chance. I got pretty severe strokes. And I come out as if it was a stroke of genius. I didn't get paralyzed. I went blind both eyes in the hospital for a week. Found out I was diabetic. I never knew. And I had been kind of depressed, I'm an artist. We're emotional, And I was in a bit of a lull. Which happens, you get frustrated. Why aren't you selling? Why isn't that? Life's in chapters that way. But I got a second chance, once I got out of the hospital, immediately went back to the things that I know I'm supposed to be doing anyway, just loving myself primarily, it was a big challenge. And I started, eating better, getting back on no breads, no pastas, no stuff like that. Very selective, mostly proteins and veggies. And got control of the blood sugar, which was very, very important. And then, bought a bike and I'm riding, I'm doing stuff, and suddenly I'm just like, you know what? I'm doing this. Where instead of why not, it's like, I am. And I know those things, but you fall off, especially being an artist. You get hit a little harder when your heart's in it. And now it's like, heck yeah, I'm on a roll. Luckily, I've been documenting and journaling, and I've got piles and piles of writings of inventions and just discovery of the cross references with stuff. So I've got all that I can still manifest with. And now I've been sticking with the kids' books, and it's finally starting. But I'm starting to feel like a kid myself. I'm today, I'm 59. I'll be 60 in April, and I feel better than I did when I was 40. But it was touch and go. And the doctors told me, get your paperwork. Dude, you're checking out. And we don't need to tell you this, but we have to be honest. You've got this issue, that issue. My issues had issues. And but get that diabetes in check. That's the first thing. And now that I've done that, I just got, a new lease on life, which is great. So, a whole new grand gate of grandeur that I'm lined up for right now. And just feeling good about it raises your frequency. That's one thing I know pretty well from working with the Divine Code and movement that way, searching for harmony. When your frequency's up, you know it. And when it's down, you know it too. But you get stuck down there, where the news is and where the crud is. It's really easy to kind of get drugged through there, even though you know better. And the martial mind can play tricks on you as well. Ego is a very, very challenging reality of life path. And right now, I'm pretty much egoless, I'd like to think. And now, thanks to these strokes, and thanks to being this close of a leaving the vessel, I've got some new gratitude, and I'm really digging life right now. Thanks to good friends, some good people, they show up, and especially when you're in the hospital, people you'd never thought would have show up, and it gets your motor going. So I'm really grateful for those strokes, and in any second, we don't know, what's going to happen, and I'm able to kind of really resonate with that gratitude right now. And even the martial stuff is just getting more fun. It's always been fun. And the fact that I'm not prioritizing on destructive energy, I'm on creative energy. I'm not competing with anyone. I'd be bummed if I was, because these guys are young guys now. They're all buff and they're doing all this amazing stuff. I don't compete with anybody. I know how to tell the truth with my own body. And what I found with centrifugal force, free will, and the divine code, following nature's golden spiral, I can really celebrate life at any velocity and be at that moment where I used to just get in little snippets of the comfort, those little moments of flight time. Oh, if you could only hang in there. If you just come in with the basketball ready to go, wham! It's that flight time. After you hit the basket, yeah, okay, everybody, but it was a flight time. That Winnie the Pooh moment that I've been searching for and didn't know what I was searching for. I found it. And now that I made it through a stroke, I want to share that. Don't get so stylized that you lose your own identity. The martial arts, and be the I am of it. That's what I would tell people, really realize that, when you're up against somebody, I should have blocked that. You're learning. It's not you against them. It's actually you working with Source. How do you raise your frequency? How do you start bringing in laws of karma? How do you start to do that? Maintain your own identity and expand and contract whatever information is given to you. Take it forward, take it back, and try to see the bigger picture. If you look for the differences in techniques, it's all very fine. But if you see the similarities, you'll find your own genius. And once you find your own genius, it becomes an expression of soul. Don't be a martial artist for the money. Don't be a martial artist because you think you can beat somebody. Do it to be a better you for everybody else. Day in, day out, be a gentleman, think before you speak. Keep your wits about you, protect yourself at all times. At the same time, listen, seek the summit. The best version of yourself is you as a martial artist.